Good morning, dear colleagues. Today's theme, digestive system, first lesson, and the main questions are oral cavity, tongue, soft palate, teeth, pharynx, salivatory glands. Let's begin from the oral cavity, or in Latin, cavum oris. Sometimes we can find the term cavitas oris. Practically it's the same, cavum oris or cavitas oris. This is a picture of sagittal section of oral cavity or cavum oris, and now I use this red arrow to demonstrate first part of cavitas oris, or vestibulum oris in Latin. Vestibulum oris. What is vestibulum oris? It's part of oral cavity which is between the next walls. From anterior and lateral side we can find the mucous sheet of the lips. So mucous sheet of the lips and cheeks are anterior and lateral wall of vestibulum oris, and posterior wall is the gum and teeth of upper and lower jaws. That means maxilla and mandibular. This is maxilla and this is mandible. So, cavitas oris is divided into vestibulum oris and cavum oris proprium. So now this arrow demonstrates that we are in cavum oris proprium. So again, for us, very important to understand the walls and contents of cavum oris proprium. According to the walls, we can say that there are several walls. First of all, superior wall, which consists of palatum durum. This is palatum durum, and palatum molle. Here it is, palatum molle. And according to the inferior wall, here it is, inferior wall, we can say that it consists of diaphragma oris, which is again consists of musculus mylohyaidus, here it is, and above of it musculus geniohyaidus, here it is, musculus geniohyaidus. You remember that musculus mylohyaidus we can find in the specimen and the cadaver, but musculus geniohyaidus we can find only on the section, sagittal section, because it is more superiorly placed, more nearly to the tongue. So two large walls. Then again anterior and lateral wall, which consists of dens and gingiva. And what about the content of the oral cavity? Here it is. The black arrow demonstrates the content. It's lingua or tongue. So inside of cavum oris proprium we can find tongue. And what about posterior wall? Can we find here posterior wall or not? From posteriorly we can find palatum molle, and then the opening, the orifice which connects the cavum oris proprium and next part of alimentary canal, that means pharynx. So here we can find the opening, the orifice between oral cavity and pharynx, which called as fauces. Fauces. So, to understand the fauces, we can use this picture. You can see that mouth is widely opened, and here, what is it? It's back wall of the oropharynx, which is visible through the opening of the throat. So this opening, named as fauces or isthmus faucium, they are synonyms, fauces or isthmus faucium. And through this opening we can see the back wall of pharynx, the oropharynx. Here it is, the back wall. So there is a question. What structures limits the fauces from lateral sides? First structure is designated by this red arrow. It demonstrates arcus palatopharyngeus. Why this name? Because it is palatum, soft palatum, and palatum molle, soft palatum or palatum molle, and from it to the pharynx pass this arcus. It's paired arcus, right and left. And another border of isthmus faucium, of Faux, is these structures on the radix of tongue, radix linguae. They are papille vallate, which separates the front 2/3 parts of tongue from the root of the tongue. Now, it would be good to say what is fauces or what is isthmus faucium. We can say that isthmus faucium is communication between the oral cavity and the oropharynx. That means orifice between oral cavity and oropharynx, limited by the root of the tongue, here it is, root of the tongue, and palate pharyngeal arches, arcus palata pharyngeus. So now we know what is the opening between mouth, oral cavity, and next part of the alimentary canal, exactly pharynx. So, if it is soft palate or palatum molle, we should know the muscles which can move this structure, palatum molle. There are 5 such muscles. First of all, musculus palatoglossus. Musculus palatoglossus. It is localized inside of arcus palatoglossus. So, in our specimen we can find arcus palatoglossus, but not find musculus palatoglossus. But we should understand that muscle, musculus palatoglossus, is localized inside of arcus palatoglossus. Then, number 2, musculus palatopharyngeus, which also are inside of arcus palatus pharyngeus. Number 3 is musculus tensor veli palatini, tensor veli palatini. Number 4, musculus levator veli palatini. And the last, number 5, musculus uvule. Musculus uvule. So, 5 muscles. Now, we shall find them in a special picture which you can find in textbook of Sapin and textbooks of previous. So, let's try to understand what is drawn here. It's tongue. Number 3 is hamulus ossis pterygoidus. Hamulus ossis pterygoidus. And between these structures are placed 5 muscles. This part demonstrates the base of the cranium, base of the skull. So, first 2 muscles originates from the base of the skull. So, here it is superior position, this is inferior position. And number 1 is musculus tensor veli palatini. I use designation with letter A also. It's paired muscle, that's why letter A demonstrate right muscle, musculus tensor veli palatini, here it is. And number 1, the left musculus tensor veli palatini. We can say that this muscle consists of 2 bundles, muscular bundles, which are connecting at right angle and enveloping humulus pterygoidus, number 3. So, vertical bundle and horizontal bundle. And sure, we can understand that when they are contracting, so they shall tense the palate. That's why musculus tensor belli palatini. And another muscle I use for designation letter B here from the right side and number 2 from left side. It's musculus levator belli palatini. Why levator? Because when it contracts, it will elevate the palate. It moves the palate superiorly. That means elevation. That's why levator belli palatini. Very important to understand that in this picture we are looking from the front view. So before us, before this plane, before this screen is anterior position, and after this picture, after the screen is posterior position. And very important that from these two muscles, musculus tensor is localized more anteriorly and musculus levator belli palatini more posteriorly. The position of these two muscles are close to each other, but tensor is anteriorly localized and levator posteriorly. So these two muscles are located superiorly to the palate, and two another muscles are located inferiorly to the palate. Here it is, the palate, so these muscles are inferiorly to the palate. What they are? First of all, letter C, here it is, from right side. This is musculus palatoglossus. It's obviously that palate is connecting with the tongue by this muscle, musculus palatoglossus. Tongue in Greek means glossus, palatoglossus. Then letter D demonstrates musculus palatopharyngeus. Pharynx is the next part of alimentary canal, which is located posteriorly to the palate, and that's why letter D demonstrates musculus palatopharyngeus. So two muscles are superiorly to palate, two muscles are inferiorly to the palate, and the last number 5 muscle is inside of the palate. It is musculus uvule, letter F, musculus uvule, letter F or number 5. So 5 muscles of soft palate. I use this picture for we can then pass through the test, because each of these pictures are inserted into the tests. Next question. Salivatory glands o glandule salivatorie. Glandule salivatorie. There are small salivatory glands which is difficult to see without a special preparation in the oral cavity, and 3 large salivatory glands. Exactly, glandula submandibularis, glandula sublingualis, and glandula parotida. We again use the sagittal section of oral cavity, but in comparison with the previous picture, the mouth is closed. And what else we can find in this picture? That the mucous sheet was cut here. This is place where mucosa was cut. And that's why we can see under the mucous sheet these structures. What they are? First of all, number 1 is glandula sublingualis. Here it is, glandula sublingualis, which is located in cavum oris proprium. It's obvious because it is under the cut, the tongue, which also was cut. So, glandula sublingualis. And the next, close to it, number 2, is glandula submandibularis. Glandula submandibularis. It's very interesting that glandula submandibularis consists of 2 parts. One of it is located on the neck in trigonum submandibulare, this part. And another part is located in cavum oris proprium, this part. So, glandula submandibularis is not straight in the shape, but is stretched by right angle. Then I should like to remember you this muscle number 3. What is it? It's diaphragm of the oris, diaphragm of the mouth, musculus mylohyaidus. The second muscle of diaphragm oris is this musculus geniohyaidus, but it was cut. And now, very important structure, number 4. What is it? It's special duct which serves to passing saliva from the gland into the oral cavity, and it is opens here in caruncula sublingualis, number 5. Number 5, it's caruncula sublingualis. And in this place, in caruncula sublingualis, together, glandula submandibularis and glandula sublingualis opens together. In what part of oral cavity? In cavitas oris proprium, under the tongue. Caruncula sublingualis is placed in cavitas oris proprium, under the tongue. We can say sublingually. And now let's look the same structures from anterior position, from front point of view. What is this number 1? We can find each of us in the mirror or in patient, when patient elevate his tongue, like here. This is number 1, so named plica sublingualis. We can say that in this plica sublingualis are located the projection of glandula sublingualis. You can see that here from left side it is intact, it wasn't injured, but from right side they especially have cut the mucus, and that's why we can see muscles of the tongue, and here we can see glandula sublingualis. So glandula sublingualis is located in the plica sublingualis. So mucus which covers glandula sublingualis forms plica sublingualis. And it's important to say that there are a lot of venous blood vessels in this region, and that's why exists one of the ways to use the medicines, the drugs, which placed here sublingually under the tongue, because without mastication, because these vessels helps to inject into the blood circulation these chemical substances from the medicines. Then number 2. So number 2 in our picture is glandula sublingualis. Again, we can say that here mucus was cut off. And now number 3. What is number 3? And here from the left side, number 3. What is it? Number 3 is caruncula sublingualis. Caruncula sublingualis. Caruncula sublingualis is the place of opening of ductus sublingualis and ductus submandibularis. So in this point, 2 salivatory glands glandula sublingualis and glandula submandibularis mutually together opens into the oral cavity. So maybe you can remember, according to your own experience, maybe, I don't know. Usually Indians have very good teeth, as I know. But if, for example, you need to visit stomatologist, during this stomatological exam, stomatologists use a special tampon which placed here for prevent salivation from caruncula sublingualis, or they use a special device for sucking of saliva from this place, because saliva doesn't help to work in oral cavity during stomatological manipulations. And now number 4, what is it? We can say that number 4 is a special plica which is located medially in sagittal plane and connects the apex of the tongue with the place of plica sublingualis. So this structure named frenulum linguae. Frenulum linguae. It's interesting that length of this frenulum linguae can provide the freedom of movements of the tongue. Sometimes from the birth, some individuals have very short frenulum linguae, like here. And such individuals couldn't move the tongue outside of the mouth, and pronunciation of some words is difficult for such individual. And that's why usually the surgeons use the cutting of frenulum linguae for best free movements of the tongue, for good pronunciation. This situation, usually designated as short bridle, and in Greek term ankyloglossia, ankyloglossia. That means not good moving tongue. Okay. If you think that you understand well, so please test yourself. Try to close the designation, and by the heart, by the memory, please write down what is number 1, what is number 2, number 3, and so on. This is picture from your tests in LMS 3 distant course. Next question. Next issue. Tongue or lingua in Latin. Lingua. In Greek, glossus. First of all, let's try to look at the tongue from schematic picture and more realistic picture. We can say that tongue has apex, this part, apex, has the corpus linguae, this one, and radix linguae, more distally located part of the tongue. It's very important and interesting that radix linguae and corpus linguae are distinguished from each other by this line, sulcus terminalis. Here it is, sulcus terminalis. And on the apex of this sulcus, which has shape of Latin letter V, so you can find foramen cecum. Foramen cecum, it means blind foramen, which doesn't lead to any another structure. Why? We can find this sulcus terminalis and foramen cecum. Sulcus terminalis and foramen cecum. Here it is foramen cecum, here it is sulcus terminalis. Because of corpus linguae and radix linguae are developed from different embryological sources, and sulcus terminalis, linea terminalis, is the remnant of this border which were developed from different sources. And very interesting another information. In early embryological period, from foramen cecum originated the special duct, ductus thyroglossus, from which glandula thyroida, thyroid gland, was developed. But in healthy adult person, this foramen is blind. It doesn't lead in any duct, and that's why in Latin we use term foramen cecum. But nevertheless, in some pathological conditions, we can find so-named cysts of the neck. Cysts of the neck very often are a remnant of ductus thyroglossus, which in embryological period was connected with today's foramen cecum. So it's usually, it's obviously that anatomy can explain a lot of anomalies of our organism due to peculiarity of embryological process, embryological development. Another very important information from these pictures, that anterior 2/3 part of the tongue is covered by the mucous sheet with a lot of special villis, which named as papilles. So these papilles are necessary for tasting, for feeling of taste when we are eating or drinking something. We are tasting some food, some drink by this papille. They are divided into papille vallate, most large, which are located close to sulcus terminalis. Here it is. Here they are, papille vallate. Then we can find papille foliate as folie. Papille foliate, which are located on the lateral sides of the tongue, most posteriorly located on the corpus linguae. Then papille fungiformis. Here there are numerous papillae which are here in the anterior surface of the corpus linguae. All these fungiform papillae. And last type of tongue papilles are papille conice. All this surface, except more large fungiform papilla, all this surface is velvet shaped due to a special numerous very small papille conice, which have shape of conus, of cone. So papille vallate, papille foliate, number 2, papille filiformis, and papille fungiformis et conice. 4 types of tongue papilles. And again, I recommend you test yourself using this another picture which you can find in your examination test. Another issue, tongue muscles. We can say that tongue is muscular organ. That means practically it consists of different muscles which can be divided into 2 subgroups, into intrinsic muscles, intrinsic inside of the tongue, and extrinsic muscles which are developed from the embryological special pharyngeal arches, first, second, and third. So intrinsic muscles are inside of the tongue, and extrinsic are connected with external bones, which the skull and connects with tongue itself. So let's try to define them. Number 1, what is it? Superior longitudinal muscle, but we should know the Latin term musculus longitudinalis superior. Musculus longitudinalis superior. It's obviously that this muscle, while contracting, it will shorten the tongue. The next, number 2, musculus longitudinalis inferior. At number 3, here it is, it's musculus transversus linguae. Here it is in this scheme. Musculus transversus linguae. When it contracts, tongue change its shape and makes a groove in superior surface. And number 4, here it is. Here it is. It's vertical muscle, or musculus verticalis. Musculus verticalis. And now another subgroup, extrinsic muscles. First of all, number 5, it's musculus styloglossus, from processus styloidus of the skull to the tongue, musculus styloglossus. Then number 6, musculus hyoglossus. Musculus hyoglossus. Here it is. From the hyoid bone on the neck. And then number 7, musculus genioglossus, from the internal surface of mandible. Musculus genioglossus, and here it is on another scheme, musculus genioglossus. So we should know that there are intrinsic muscles and extrinsic muscles, and to understand extrinsic muscles, let's use another picture. Here they are, the scheme and more realistic picture. First of all, let's understand that this is parasagittal section, and it's styloid process. Here it is styloid process, and number 1, that's why is musculus styloglossus. Musculus styloglossus. Then number 2, it's hyoid bone. So number 2, hyoid bone is musculus hyoglossus. And then number 3, here number 3, and here number 3 is musculus genioglossus. 3 extrinsic muscles of the tongue. Okay, practically we can say that we have finished with the oral cavity, and the next part of alimentary canal is so named pharynx. Pharynx. Pharynx is part of alimentary tube, which is connected with the base of the skull, and in which opens nasal cavity, oral cavity, and larynx, the upper part of the respiratory tube. That's why we can divide the pharynx into 3 parts. This blue-lined part is pars nasalis. Pars nasalis. So, nasal cavity is connected with pars nasalis through Hoans, openings which named Hoans. Then, with yellow line, we can designate the pars oralis pharynx. Pars oralis pharynx. The food during swallowing passes from oral cavity into pars oralis pharynx. Pars oralis pharynx. It's very important that you could find these parts in our cadaveric specimen. And now, with green line, define it pars laryngea. Pars laryngea. Because if this is alimentary canal, this is respiratory pathways. Most superior part of this tube called as larynx. Here it is larynx. So larynx is connected with pars laryngea. You can understand that during swallowing there is a large risk of entering any external particles of the food into the respiratory canal. It usually takes place only in pathological situation. In adult person, it could be if regulation of muscular contraction isn't correct. For example, in drunk persons. Very often we can find the reason of the death of individuals in drunk condition because of the particles of the food or saliva enters to the respiratory canal and obstruct it, and these individuals died due to asphyxia, impossibility to make inspiration, and that will be reason of the death. And also another very often situation with these difficulties of swallowing take place in patient with the stroke, when the brain vessels are damaged due to any thromb or any lesion of another reason. So regulation of this process of swallowing will be also damaged. Okay. Parts of the pharynx, we should know pars nasalis, pars oralis, and pars laryngea. And now let's try to look at their pharynx from posterior view and be attentive for these structures. What is it? Special surgical devices for open the pharynx. Pharynx before was cut into sagittal plane, and right and left parts of this cutted posterior wall was removed to the right and to the left, open to right and left. So we can see the main parts of the pharynx. Nasopharynx or pars nasalis pharynx. These are holes through which the air could enter to the nasopharynx or pars nasalis pharynx. This is radix of the tongue, and this opening is fauces or isthmus faucium, through which the food during process of swallowing passes from oral cavity to the oral parts of the pharynx. And here it is the vestibulum laryngis, where the respiratory canal take place, and this structure number 11 is epiglottis, a special cartilage which can move and prevent the entering external particles inside of this respiratory canal. All these details you should know, and it's again picture from your control test. And now practically the same, but without cutting in mid-sagittal plane. It's interesting that we can see here a special structure, raphe, this of gray color, which connects between each other right and left muscles of the pharynx. Sure, during swallowing, the pharynx should contract, and for this contraction we shall use different muscles as constrictors, they are here, and muscles dilatators of the pharynx, which we shall find later. So this is posterior view of the pharynx without any cutting. And very interesting question. What is number 1? What is this structure, number 1? It's fascia pharyngo-basilaris. Fascia pharyngo-basilaris is fibrous tissue that fixes the pharynx to the base of the skull and prevents the fall of the walls of the nasopharynx, for example, during process of sleeping. Do you remember that in basilar part of os accipitalis there is processus tuberculum pharyngeum. So fascia pharyngo-basilaris attaches to this tuberculum pharyngeus. We can ask ourselves why these quite heavy structure as pharynx is fixed to the base of the skull. Why? Because fascia pharyngobasilaris is connected to the periosteum of the skull. That's why it's fixed to the base of the skull. So fascia pharyngobasilaris is features of structure of the wall of the pharynx. I'd like to remember you that we have a special rule of organizing of wall of so-named whole organs. The organs which inside of it has the cavity. For example, pharynx, esophagus, intestine, stomach, bladder, uterus. There are a lot of whole organs, and each of them has a rule of organizing of the wall. The wall of whole organs consists of three main sheets: mucous sheet, muscular sheet, and external sheet. And in each organ, we should ask ourselves what features we can find exactly in this organ. And main feature of pharynx, according to structure of the wall, is fascia pharyngobasilaris. Another organs, for example, esophagus, for example, stomach, they haven't such kind of fascia. So I recommend you, when you prepare to the next question, next issue, so you shall find the features of the structure of the wall in this organ. Features of the wall structure in pharynx is fascia pharyngobasilaris, which prevents the fall of the walls of another pharynx, especially during the process of sleeping. And now we shall try to find the same structures in natural cadaveric specimen. Here it is an example. This part of the basal part of the skull and pharynx is inside of a special vessel which filled with formaldehyde solution to prevent the process of necrosis. And let's try to find some anatomical structures. Number one. What is number one? I hope you recognize that this is fascia pharyngobasilaris. What is number two? Number two is longitudinal muscle, which helps to process of swallowing. It's musculus stylopharyngeus. Musculus stylopharyngeus. What is number three? It's musculus styloglossus. It's close to stylopharyngeus, but it is inserted into into the tongue. And number 4, here it is. What is it? Number 4 is musculus digastricus. This photo also you shall find in your control test. And now the same picture with another designation. Number 1, what is it? It's circular muscle of the pharynx, exactly musculus constrictor pharyngis superior. You can see that direction of the fibers is oblique, which is directed from superior to inferior obliquely. And the next, number 2, is musculus constrictor pharyngis medius. And you can see that direction of muscles here, of muscle fibers, are transverse. And number 3 is musculus constrictor pharyngis inferior. Again, the direction of fibers is oblique. So, constrictors of the pharynx. Next issue is very important question concerning the lymphoid tissue, so named lymphoepithelial ring of Pirogov-Valdeyer. Lymphoepithelial ring of Pirogov-Valdeyer. This ring consists of 6 tonsils located in the pharynx and oral cavity. They are tonsilla pharyngea, which is unpaired, tonsilla tubaria, paired, tonsilla palatina, paired, and tonsilla lingualis, unpaired. So, these commonly fixed tonsils are lymphoepithelial ring of Pirogov-Valdeyer. Why we need these tonsils? To prevent infection from external environment enter to our intrinsic environment. So, homeostatic purpose to prevent infection from external environment enter to our internal environment. We can find these tonsils in sagittal view. First tonsil is here, most superior located. How can we explain the position of this tonsil? That it is located in the most superior part of the pharynx, in those points where superior wall of the pharynx passes into posterior wall. So this is superior wall, it's sinus sphenoidalis, and this is posterior wall. So where is the changement of direction of the wall? Here we can find first tonsil, tonsilla pharyngea, or tonsilla adenoidalis. This is the same. These tonsils are unpaired, single, and as it's written, it localized in the region of transition of the posterior wall to the upper wall of the pharynx. Then, tonsilla tubaria, which is paired. This elevation of the mucus, named torus tubarius. Torus tubarius. About what tube we mean in this situation? Do you remember the canals of temporal bone? There are 3 large canals: canalis caroticus, canalis musculotubarius, and canalis facialis. And canalis musculotubarius consists of semicanalis tubae auditive and semicanalis musculus tensor tympani. So semicanalis tubae auditive is a special canal which finishes here in the nasopharynx, and around of it we can find torus tubarius. Torus tubarius is cartilaginous structure which surrounds this opening. And we can say that on the torus tubarius is located tonsilla tubaria, which is paired right and left. Then the next, tonsilla palatina, which is paired, located in sinus tonsillaris between the plica palatoglossus and palatopharyngeus. This is plica palatoglossus, and here it is plica palatopharyngeus, and between of them we can find tonsilla palatina. It's also paired, and sure you have heard the term chronical tonsillitis. Tonsillitis is inflammation of this palate tonsil, and very often it is dangerous for bacterial inflammation of the heart, because the bacteria which causes the bacterial endocarditis very often is lying here in tonsilla palatina, in pathological situation, sure. And last tonsil is here. This is tonsilla lingualis. Tonsilla lingualis. We can say that it's radix of the lingua. Distal 1/3 part of the tongue, which has a lot of lymphoid follicles on it. And to understand it better, let us try to look in this lymphoepithelial ring not from sagittal view but from front view. So it's really a ring, and let's try to recognize pharyngeal tonsil. Here it is, and paired tubal tonsil. Here it is, and paired palatine tonsil. Here they are, and unpaired lingual tonsil. So this is a ring. This is lymphoepithelial ring of Pirogov-Waldeyer. And now let's try to find some of these tonsils especially. We can say that this tonsil is tonsilla palatina, located in sinus tonsillaris. Sinus tonsillaris is place between arcus palataglossus and arcus palatopharyngeus. So here it is. What is it? It's arcus palataglossus, and more deeply, more posteriorly, what is it? It's arcus palatopharyngeus. So palatine tonsil is located between arcus palataglossus and arcus palatopharyngeus in so named sinus tonsillaris, and practically each therapist each days examines palatine tonsils a lot of times. And the same, let's try to imagine from back position, from posterior view. Sure, in the life, it's impossible to find such kind of picture. It's only in anatomical specimen or during process of intubation. Intubation is a surgical procedure which use anesthesiologist to prepare to a special kind of narcosis. So when anesthesiologist enters this device, we can find such kind of picture. What is this? This is radix linguae or tonsilla lingualis, unpaired, and these are the papillae vellate, and this is sulcus terminalis. And what are these paired structure? These are tonsilla palatina, paired palatine tonsils. Here it is right palatine tonsil, and here it is left palatine tonsils. So it's inferior part of lymphoepithelial ring. And practically last part of today's theme is teeth or dentes in Latin. We can use this picture for demonstrating the main structure of the tooth. We can say that most superior part named corona dentis, which is enameled, that means it's covered by enamellum. Inside of the dents, the main structure, anatomical structure, consists of so named dentine. Dentine, some kind similar to the bone, but different from it. And inside of dentine, we can find the pulp of the tooth, which contains blood vessels and nerves. And now this arrow demonstrates cementum covering the tooth root. Cementum. It serves to strengthen the connection between tooth and dental alveolar. And now the gingiva, mucous sheath which covers the bone alveolar, gingiva. And again, connective tissue, which is located between the root of the tooth and the bone alveolar, is periodont. Periodont, connective tissue that fixes the tooth in the alveolar, in the hole. And now the next question, what is it? It's arteria and veins, alveolaris inferior or alveolaris superior, which passing in canalis mandible, canalis mandibulae. So if it is clear, so again we use the picture from textbook of Sapin to prepare ourselves to control test. This picture we shall use in control test. And several illustrations, so named milk or deciduous and permanent teeth, show that it's bones of the child. So we can find so named deciduous teeth which later shall fall out, and in the same time we can find that inside of the mandibular and maxilla there are some permanent teeth which are prepared for appearing. So we can find so named formula of deciduous or milk teeth like 2102. What is it? First two teeth are called dentes incisivus. Dentes incisivus. So first character 2 means 2 dentes incisivus. Then next character 1 means so named dens caninus. Dens caninus. Dens number 3. And in adult persons also there are here premolar teeth, but in children there are no premolar teeth. That's why 0 means absence of premolar teeth. And last number 2 means 2 molar teeth. Premolar and molar teeth serves to prepare food for swallowing. And another example, permanent teeth of the maxilla. So we use another formula. 2, 1, 2, 3. It means again 2 incisive teeth, 1 canine tooth, 2 premolar teeth, and 3 molar teeth. So this is formula of permanentis. 2, 1, 2, 3. And it's easy to account that adult person in norm should have 32 teeth, and child in 5, 6 years should have 20 teeth. But in adult persons, this last tooth, third molar tooth, also named as dens serotinus. It means tooth of wisdom. They use such term because this tooth appeared very late, after 18 years old, and sometimes in 20, 30 and later, and sometimes third molar couldn't appear the whole life. That's why they use this term dens serotinus, so in translation, tooth of wisdom. It means that in this old, the person should already be quite clever to be wisdom person. So all this picture, I again remember you, should be used in your control test, which you should pass at home, and the positive level more than 71%. So thank you for attention, and now you can have 10 minutes break. Thank you.